Let's look at some of the more common light settings in Cinema 4D. I'm going to bring in an area light and place this above our car somewhere. And then let's right click this, go to animation tags and target. And I'm going to drag the DeLorean into this target object link box. Now, wherever my light goes, it's always going to be pointing toward my car. And that's through this target tag. It takes the object it's applied onto and orients that object's z-axis towards your target. So if you move this to, you will see it will continue to follow it. Anyway, that's just another quick tip. In the light settings, under the general tab, we're just going to go down this list in order. So the color, is pretty straightforward. It's the color of the light. Intensity is the strength, and you can go beyond the range of this slider using this these arrows here, or you could simply type in any value you want. The type currently set to area because we brought in the light as an area light, but we can change this to these other four. I am going to get the doodle tool so I can draw onto the interface. The area light, as the name suggests, is based off an area like this, and by default we get this rectangle, right? So you get light rays coming out of this going toward the direction which the light is pointed. And then if we go back to this and change it to, let's say, Omni, the Omni light is sometimes referred to as the point light, in different 3D applications and so on, because the light originates from a single point, and then you get light rays going in all directions from that point. Similar to the Omni light, we have a spotlight, except that with this you also get a cone angle, which you can use to direct the light. So it's still point based, and then you have this cone angle which you can adjust. So if you go to the details tab, the outer angle can be adjusted to be wider or narrower depending on how large you want that beam of light to be. The inner angle can be used to control the sharpness of the edges of that spotlight. So the closer these numbers are together, the sharper that's going to be, and vice versa. Moving on, we have the infinite light type in Cinema 4D. And unlike the other light types, which are sort of more localized in their effects, the closer to the object you are and so on, the illumination is stronger. Well, the infinite light just blasts the whole scene with light rays. And so it kind of works like this, right? You have a light and then you position it, and based on its angle, that's how you get the illumination. So it's a bit like a line, and then you just get light rays from that direction. And this is why sometimes this light is called the parallel light, because that's the direction that the light rays are going. They are parallel to each other and perpendicular to the infinite light angle, which is defined by this line in this case. And so because of how this light works, it's the reason why it's used often as a sunlight in large scenes where you just need a very strong light that illuminates everything that's in the scene. Anyway, let's continue with some of these settings. We have shadow, which we can change to 3 options: shadow maps soft, ray traced hard, and area. Let's choose area for now, because in a separate lesson, we will look at the shadows in more detail. There is a shadow tab, which we are going to be looking at later. Going back to this, if this were back at Omni, we have an option to enable visible light. So if I choose the first option, which is visible, and Let's move this light to the side of our car and a bit closer maybe for this very quick illustration. And if I render this out, now we can see the light. It's visible. And there are two options to this. The other one is volumetric, which is similar, except that the light rays will now bounce into objects. You could say this one is more realistic because it actually interacts with your objects in the scene. Back in the General tab, we have some switches down here which are worth noting. No illumination, just straight up switches off, the whole light if you want to do that. Ambient illumination is interesting, and what I would do for this is disable the shadows. And let's just do a render. I also want to disable the volumetric for this. So that's what it looks like normally. And then when we enable ambient illumination, unlike normal lights, which, depending on their angle, elevation and, proximity to our object, it's going to affect, how the different surfaces are illuminated. Whereas with the ambient light, it illuminates every surface with equal intensity. And as a result, you get this very flat shading style. So this is an effect which can be used creatively if you want to do this kind of shading style. There's a couple of other switches. The first one is diffuse, which when you turn on and off, you see that our color channel, when this is off, the color channel in our materials can no longer react to their light. So we are only now seeing the reflection layer. Similarly, the specular channel, this refers to the highlight channel in the various materials. So on this basic rubber material on the tire, you can see if I disable the highlight, we lose that sort of rubber effect. So that's what the specular channel does. When we get to the section about materials, you will be seeing these two terms show up again. Here is one thing I forgot to mention at some point, but you may have already discovered this by yourself. And it's that depending on the light type we have selected here, the menu and options in the details tab will change based on that, because each type of light has different options associated with it. So each time you change this here, so each time you get back here, you get a different set of options. Finally, we have the project tab, and this can be used to control which objects will be affected by this light. If I had two DeLoreans, for example, if we make a copy of this first one, we can see this light is still following the first DeLorean. What I can do is, if I don't want this car to be illuminated by this light, I would simply drag it into this objects list. And with the mode set to exclude, whatever you place in here will be ignored by the light. And opposite to that, you would change the mode to include instead, and then whatever is in this list will now be seen by the light. So this could be used just for extra control in larger scenes. For example, when you want specific lights to only illuminate certain objects. So that's it for the light settings in general. In the following lessons, we will look at more specific topics.